There's a strange principle at the heart of quantum physics that breaks every rule you were taught about space, time, and separation. It's not a theory. It's been proven in lab after lab, experiment after experiment. It says this: when two particles become entangled, they remain connected no matter how far apart they are. Alter the state of one, and the other responds instantly. Not quickly, instantly, even if they're light years apart. This alone violates everything classical physics says is possible, because no signal should travel faster than light, and yet entangled particles do not ask permission from the speed limit of the universe. They simply respond, as if distance doesn't exist, as if time is irrelevant, as if, in some hidden layer of reality, everything is already one. Now pause. Let that land. Because this isn't just about particles. This is about you. This is about consciousness. This is about identity. The quantum world doesn't separate the observer from the observed. It doesn't divide mind from matter. It says, your focus collapses possibility into form. Your attention selects reality. But more than that, it says entanglement is not limited to electrons and photons. It may very well apply to consciousness itself. And this changes everything. Because it means that your highest self, your future self, your healed self, the version of you who already lives the reality you've been trying to manifest, might not be something you have to build from scratch. It might already exist. And more than that, it might already be entangled with you. This isn't poetic optimism. This is grounded in quantum mechanics. Let's be precise. When two particles become entangled, they share a wave function. That means their probabilities are no longer independent. They are part of the same equation, a unified system, and the collapse of one immediately determines the outcome of the other, regardless of distance. Now imagine your consciousness as a non-local field, not trapped inside your skull but extended throughout space, connected to every potential version of you across infinite timelines. The moment your internal state changes, your field shifts, and through entanglement, it begins to affect the probability space where your other versions reside. Not metaphorically, but literally. Your signal modifies the wave function of your identity across the multiverse. This is not science fiction. This is what David Bohm called the implicate order, a deeper, hidden layer of reality where all things are already enfolded into one another. He believed that what we perceive as separation is just an illusion of surface appearances. Beneath that surface, all points in space and time are connected, not symbolically, but structurally. In that view, your future is not something you move toward. It's something you tune into. And the mechanism of that tuning, your frequency, your state of being, your internal coherence. So let's reframe the question. Not how do I get to my dream reality, but how do I align with the version of me who's already living it? Because if entanglement is real, and it is, then that version of you is not an imaginary construct. It's a real, coherent pattern in the quantum field, and it is already emitting a signal, one that your consciousness can feel, one that your nervous system can attune to, one that you can begin to collapse into form, not by force, but by resonance. But here's the deeper insight. The quantum field doesn't care about your desires. It doesn't respond to your words, your effort, or your goals. It responds to coherence. It responds to the frequency of who you are being. And coherence only emerges when your thoughts, emotions, and body are aligned in a single signal. This is why most people never experience quantum shifts. They are thinking one thing, feeling another, and doing something else entirely. Their field is noisy, dissonant, contradictory. So the quantum responds with static, delay, fragmentation. Not because it's punishing, but because it's precise. And this is why understanding entanglement matters. Because once you realize you're already connected to your future self, to your dream reality, the question becomes, how clear is the signal you're sending? Is your field stable enough to create collapse? Is your nervous system calm enough to hold the transmission? Is your identity consistent enough to maintain the connection? Most people try to manifest by visualizing outcomes they don't believe in. repeating affirmations their body doesn't trust, and taking action from a place of fear. That is not coherence. That is interference. And interference is the enemy of entanglement. Because entanglement requires purity, it requires precision. It requires a signal so clear that the field cannot ignore it. And when that signal locks in, when your system becomes still, aligned, surrendered, the field responds. Not in metaphor, in physics. Probabilities collapse, timelines shift, opportunities emerge from nowhere. Not because they were created, but because you finally tuned in to the version of you that could receive them. This is the core shift we must make. To stop trying to build the future through effort, and start remembering that we're already entangled with it through being. Your dream reality is not a reward you earn. It's a frequency you access. And the only thing that separates you from it is the signal you're sending right now. So if something in you has been sensing a version of yourself that feels freer, truer, more at peace, that's not fantasy. That's entanglement speaking. That's the wave function nudging you to collapse a different path. And the way to do that isn't to try harder, it's to tune deeper. Because you are not separate from what you seek. You are already entangled with it. And the field is listening. We've been taught to think of the mind as a byproduct of the brain, a set of neurons firing in isolation, a complex machine running a code we call thought. But modern neuroscience, quantum biology, and consciousness research are revealing something far more profound. The mind is not confined to the skull, it is not local, it is not bound by flesh. It is a field, expansive, intelligent, and deeply entangled with the fabric of the quantum world. What does that mean? It means that your thoughts don't just stay inside your head. They radiate, they imprint, they interact with the unified field around you. When you think, especially with emotion, your brain generates measurable electromagnetic waves. Your heart amplifies them. Your entire system becomes a transmitter. And those signals don't just bounce around your body. They enter the quantum field. They influence probability. They become part of the informational structure that determines which version of reality collapses into form. Dr. Joe Dispenza refers to this as broadcasting a signal into the field. But it's not just philosophical. It's physiological. When your brain and heart are in a state of coherence, meaning your thoughts and emotions are synchronized, your electromagnetic field becomes highly ordered. And that order is what the quantum responds to. Coherence creates clarity. Clarity creates collapse. This coherence isn't random. It corresponds to brainwave states that reflect deep focus, presence, and intuitive awareness. In high beta, the chaotic, stressed-out frequency most people live in, your brain is noisy, fragmented, reactive. Your energy is scattered, and your connection to the field is weak. But when you drop into alpha and theta, the states associated with meditation, deep intuition, and creative visualization, your brain begins to synchronize. And when your brain syncs with your heart, a new field of possibility opens. Studies from the HeartMath Institute show that the heart's electromagnetic field is 60 times more powerful than the brain's, and it can be detected several feet away from the body. This field carries emotional information and influences not just your internal state, but the coherence of those around you. When you are in a state of love, gratitude, or trust, your heart emits a coherent frequency that entrains your brain, and together they broadcast a signal that speaks fluently to the quantum. Now take this one step further. If your brain and heart can create coherent signals that impact the field, then your entire nervous system becomes a kind of antenna, a quantum portal. And the quality of the signal you send determines which reality you entangle with. This is not spiritual metaphor. This is measurable frequency. This is wave mechanics. Your thoughts and emotions are not private events. They are quantum instructions. And the implications are staggering, because it means that the moment you enter a coherent internal state, where your beliefs, emotions, and physical sensations align, you become non-local. You step beyond the illusion of separation. You begin to access information that doesn't come from memory, but from the field itself. This is what mystics have described for centuries as revelation, insight, awakening. It's what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. It's what Bohm described as the hollow movement, a flowing, undivided wholeness that contains all potential realities at once. But now we have the language of quantum physics and neuroscience to explain what used to be reserved for mystics. And here's the quantum twist. When your inner world stabilizes in coherence, it doesn't just feel good. It becomes a gravitational pull. It draws timelines. It attracts synchronicities. It collapses realities that match the signal you're emitting. And it allows you to entangle, literally, scientifically, with a version of yourself who already lives in that field. Because remember, in the quantum universe, time is not linear. Every version of you exists as a wave function, and the one you experience depends on the version of yourself that your signal resonates with. The future you who lives in alignment, peace, and abundance is not just an aspiration. They are a pattern in the field. They already exist. The question is not whether they're real. The question is, are you coherent enough to receive their signal? This is why all true transformation begins within. Because until your inner world becomes coherent, your outer world remains distorted. You cannot entangle with clarity if your field is full of contradiction. You cannot collapse the future if your nervous system is stuck in the past. The observer effect in quantum physics tells us that the act of observation collapses possibility into form. But observation is not passive. In the quantum sense, it includes attention, emotion, intention. It includes the whole of your consciousness, and that consciousness is broadcast through your brain, your heart, your gut, your field. Every time you observe with alignment, you collapse a new version of reality. And this brings us to a radical insight. The brain is not the source of the mind. It is a receiver, a translator, a portal. What you call thought may be less about generating ideas and more about tuning into frequencies, realities that already exist. So the next time you feel a vision come through in meditation, the next time you sense a future self guiding you, the next time you suddenly know something you didn't learn, don't dismiss it as imagination. Consider that you just tuned in, that your field momentarily aligned, that your consciousness reached across the quantum sea and touched the hand of your entangled self. Because the mind is not a prisoner of the brain. It is the bridge between dimensions. And your coherence is the key to walking across. If your consciousness is the signal, and the quantum field is the receiver, then your mental programming is the filter. And most people are broadcasting distorted frequencies without even knowing it. They repeat affirmations that sound right, but feel wrong. They visualize futures that their nervous system is still afraid to hold. They chase timelines that never collapse, not because the field isn't working, but because their internal code is out of sync. This is the silent sabotage of the subconscious mind. Let's be clear. Over 95% of your thoughts, actions, and emotional reactions are not conscious. They are automated responses rooted in beliefs, memories, and emotional patterns stored deep in your neurobiology. From the moment you were born, and even before, you were absorbing frequencies. You inherited emotional signatures from your parents, culture, experiences, traumas. These became the foundation of your identity, and unless consciously updated, they remain in control, silently, rigidly, unseen. You can desire freedom, while your subconscious still associates freedom with danger. You can speak abundance, while your body is bracing for loss. You can envision love, while your cells still carry the memory of betrayal. And the quantum field, precise, impersonal, reflective, responds not to your hopes, but to your dominant signal. That signal is not your conscious voice. It's the sum total of your coherence. And when that coherence is fragmented by unconscious programming, the entanglement fails. The timeline stalls. The future doesn't land. Not because it's unreachable, but because you're not yet a vibrational match to receive it. Imagine trying to tune into a frequency of 97.8 FM, but your signal keeps flickering between 88.1 and 103.5. That's what it's like when your inner code is filled with contradictions. One part of you wants the future. Another part fears it. One part trusts the field. Another part tries to control it. This fragmentation creates noise, and noise blocks entanglement. This is why so many spiritual seekers feel stuck, not because the field isn't responding, but because they haven't reprogrammed the version of themselves doing the seeking. You can't collapse a new reality from an old identity, and identity is a program. It's a script written by experience, reinforced by repetition, and often inherited without consent. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is especially true in the quantum, because the subconscious, not your intellect, is the true observer. It is your deepest, vibrational pattern. It determines how safe you feel to receive, how worthy you believe you are, how much energy you're willing to hold, and unless that pattern is shifted, the field will keep collapsing the same loop. Let's bring this down to the nervous system. Your body is not just a biological machine, it's a memory field. Every trauma, every suppression, every unprocessed emotion creates a physiological response. Over time, these responses form your baseline. They become the background noise of your existence: tightness, doubt, vigilance, avoidance, all of which influence your signal. A person can consciously say, "I am ready to receive," but if their body is still stuck in sympathetic survival, fight, flight, or freeze, the field receives fear, not readiness. And what returns is more delay, more resistance, more evidence of the old timeline. But here's the deeper pain point. Most people think this resistance is their fault. They believe they're broken, unworthy, or somehow failing at manifestation. They try harder, push more, force alignment, and in doing so, they reinforce the very program they're trying to escape. It's hard. I'm not there yet. I must fight for it. This is the mental architecture that blocks quantum connection. You can't entangle with your highest self while living in a survival state that only knows how to replicate the past. That's why true transformation doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with liberation. Liberation from the unconscious code, from the internalized noise, from the outdated frequency that once kept you safe, but now keeps you small. Let me tell you a story, one you might recognize. There was a man who had everything planned. He studied the science, he practiced the steps, he made the vision board, said the affirmations, meditated daily, but nothing changed. The same scarcity loop, the same emotional triggers, the same feeling of pushing a future that never arrived. Until one day he stopped asking, "What am I doing wrong?" and asked instead, "What part of me still doesn't believe this is safe?" And that question cracked something open. He saw a moment years earlier when he had achieved a breakthrough and lost everything. And deep in his subconscious, a belief had taken root. When I receive, I lose. When I shine, I'm punished. When I expand, I get hurt. That belief had shaped every signal he ever sent, no matter how positive his words. It wasn't until he brought that story into awareness and rewrote it that the field began to respond differently. Because the field doesn't mirror your surface, it mirrors your source. And until that source is purified, the signal stays fractured. This is not about blame, it's about awareness. You are not broken, you are broadcasting. And your broadcast is not who you are, it's what you've been trained to emit. The moment you realize that is the moment you reclaim your power to reprogram. Because the quantum field is not loyal to your past. It's loyal to your pattern. And patterns can be rewritten. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are simply entangled with a version of reality shaped by a story that no longer belongs to you. And now, it's time to change the code. If you've made it this far, something in you already knows. The future isn't something you chase, it's something you connect with. And connection, in the quantum sense, is not made through thought alone. It happens through coherence, through becoming, through recoding the patterns your nervous system has been taught to repeat, and replacing them with a frequency it once feared, but is now ready to hold. So now, we shift from concept into calibration, from theory into field, from understanding into embodiment. Let's begin with a principle grounded in both quantum mechanics and neuroscience. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a memory and a vivid, emotionally charged imagination. When you visualize something with sensory, detail, and emotional weight, your brain, and more importantly, your body, begins to treat that vision as real. The circuits fire, hormones release. Your electromagnetic field changes. You start to emit a signal that matches that imagined state, and the field responds not to whether it's true, but to whether it's consistent. This is the mechanism behind mental reprogramming. You don't affirm the future into being by repeating words. You become the future by embodying the frequency of already. So take a breath. Find a quiet space within yourself. Let the words that follow not just pass through your ears, but through your field. Let them guide you into alignment, not through control, but through softening, through presence, through willingness. Now, imagine a version of you who has already made the quantum leap. They're not perfect, but they are whole. They walk with clarity. They breathe with ease. They move with a frequency that feels settled, grounded, magnetic. They're not reaching. They're not proving. They are living. See them in your mind's eye. Where are they? What are they wearing? How do they speak? How do they hold themselves? What does their life look like? Not just externally, but emotionally. And now, feel them. Not from a place of distance, but from a place of recognition. Because this version of you is not somewhere else, they are here now, and the only thing separating you is the emotional distance between your current frequency and theirs. So begin to close that gap. Breathe as they would breathe. Soften your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Let your heart slow down. Let your thoughts dissolve. Let yourself feel, even for a moment, what it's like to already be them. Hold it. Stay with it. Let your system calibrate. This is not fantasy. This is quantum alignment. Because right now, in this moment, your nervous system is rewriting itself. You are replacing the signal of lack with the signal of sufficiency. You are dissolving the code of effort with the signal of embodiment. And in this state, the field listens. Because the field doesn't respond to want. It doesn't respond to striving. It doesn't even respond to intention alone. It responds to being, to identity, to resonance. So as you hold this state, remember, this is the frequency your future responds to. This is the timeline you collapse, not by chasing it, but by tuning to it. And tuning is not force. Tuning is surrender. It is presence. It is willingness to stop narrating the old story long enough for the new one to form. It is giving your body permission to feel safe in a frequency it was once trained to fear. It is allowing your subconscious to receive a new instruction. I am not the version that suffered. I am the version that remembers. Because that's what reprogramming truly is. Not repeating what you want, but becoming who you already are beneath the programming. And now, a single act. Small, symbolic, but vibrationally significant. In the comments, type the words, I am entangled. Not for me, not for others, but as a marker in your field, a declaration to the quantum, a signal of readiness, of coherence, of return. Because when you name it, you claim it. And when you claim it, the field begins to respond. You are not pretending. You are remembering. You are not creating from scratch. You are collapsing from signal. And the version of you that already lives this truth feels you now. Stay here for as long as your system allows. Let the vision saturate your cells. Let the emotions settle into your field. Let the old code melt in the presence of this new frequency. And if it feels subtle, good. That means it's real. Because quantum change isn't loud, it's precise. It moves beneath the surface, in stillness, in sensation, in breath. This is not performance. This is access. This is not magic. This is mechanics. And you are the bridge. So let this practice be more than an exercise. Let it be an invitation to live from the signal you've just activated. Let it bleed into your day, your choices, your posture, your voice. Because the more you stay in this state, even for a few moments at a time, the more your field stabilizes. And when your field stabilizes, reality bends. There comes a moment, subtle, quiet, unmistakable, when the chase dissolves, when the part of you that has been reaching, striving, hoping, simply stops, not from exhaustion, but from remembrance. A deep, cellular knowing arises. What you've been looking for is not ahead of you. It's already within. And the real work is not to get there, but to return here. This is the essence of quantum becoming. You don't attract your dream life. You become the frequency that matches it. And then, the field aligns. But to become is not to fake. It's not to act as if, from a place of lack. It's to remember the version of you that already exists. Beyond the noise, the self that has always been aligned, expanded, clear. You are not inventing that self. You are collapsing into it. Let's anchor this in the science. Every possible version of you, rich, poor, healed, broken, fulfilled, afraid, already exists as a wave function in the quantum field. These wave functions are not static images. They are energetic blueprints, probabilities, vibrational realities that flicker in and out of possibility. And the version you experience is determined by one thing: coherence. When your internal state matches the frequency of one of those waveforms, that version collapses. It becomes your lived reality. This is not spiritual poetry. It's quantum physics. It's the observer effect in action, but not the shallow version you've heard 1,000 times. Observation, in the quantum sense, isn't just visual focus. It's identity. It's being. It's the totality of your electromagnetic presence acting as the selector of reality. So the question is no longer, how do I get to my dream reality? It's how do I stabilize in the identity of the version of me who already lives it? That shift changes everything. It changes how you breathe. It changes how you walk into a room. It changes how you speak to yourself in silence. It changes what you tolerate, what you expect, what you prepare for. And here's the paradox. The more you act like you already are, the less you need to prove it. The more you live from your future, the less you need to chase it. And the field, always listening, always precise, begins to collapse that reality faster than logic can comprehend. Because when you become the signal, the delay disappears. But let's be honest, becoming isn't always glamorous. It doesn't always feel like a breakthrough. Sometimes it feels like discomfort, grief, resistance. Because you're not just stepping into a new frequency, you're shedding every part of you that was built to survive the old one. That shedding can look like stillness, like doubt, like silence. But beneath that silence, something is calibrating. Your field is stabilizing. Your nervous system is learning that safety is no longer in the pattern. It's in the possibility. And the version of you that already exists in that possibility, they are not waiting for you to impress them. They are waiting for you to trust them. You trust them by walking like them. You trust them by thinking from their perspective. You trust them by stopping the broadcast of, "I'm not there yet," and replacing it with, "I'm already living it." This is what Neville Goddard meant when he said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." He didn't mean force the emotion. He meant stabilize in the identity. Let it become your base frequency, your natural state, your home vibration. And once it is, once your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors begin to hum in harmony with that self, the field stops reflecting your efforts and starts reflecting your essence. Because essence is magnetic, and your essence is not something you earn. It's something you remember. So who would you be today if you knew your dream reality was already real? How would you move? What would you stop explaining? What would you start honoring? These are not hypotheticals. They are calibration points. Because each time you choose to act from the identity you're becoming, rather than the one you're leaving, behind you broadcast a new signal. And that signal begins to override the old code. Slowly, steadily, powerfully. You are not doing this to convince the universe. You are doing it to collapse into the version of you that the universe has already created. That's why this process isn't about effort. It's about alignment. Not about doing more, but being more coherent. Not about visualizing harder, but about vibrating honestly. Not about forcing change, but becoming the proof that it already happened. Because when your field becomes indistinguishable from the one you desire, there is nothing left to manifest, only timelines left to receive. So breathe into that. Let yourself soften. Let the grip loosen. Let the version of you who already knows begin to lead. Not someday. Now, because becoming is not a destination. It is a daily, moment-by-moment return to the you that already exists. Not everything that changes you makes noise. Sometimes the most powerful shift doesn't come with fireworks or breakthroughs or declarations. It arrives in stillness, quiet, almost unnoticed. A subtle recalibration of the field, not outside you but within. A shift so precise, so resonant that the entire structure of your reality begins to reorganize without a single word being spoken. This is the realm where true manifestation lives, not in the shouting, not in the grasping, not in the constant checking for signs, but in the silent frequency of coherence, because the quantum field does not need your performance. It responds to your presence. And when your presence carries no contradiction, when your frequency hums in quiet alignment, the field moves. Without hesitation, without delay, timelines collapse not through effort but through elegance, through the vibrational certainty of a being who no longer needs to chase, prove, or protect, because they already are. That is what your entangled self is waiting for. Not your effort, your arrival. And here's the mystery. You often won't feel the shift when it first happens. You'll feel a pause, a release, a strange spaciousness, like something just clicked beneath the surface and the need to control has disappeared. You'll find yourself speaking less, doubting less, grasping less, not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because the version of you who used to cling has dissolved. That dissolution is the evidence, because every version of reality you've collapsed so far began as a frequency. And this one, the one that carries your peace, your purpose, your abundance, is no different. It begins here, now, in the calm, in the breath, in the exact vibration you're holding in this moment. And the field is responding. You may not see it yet. You may not feel it fully, but something has already begun moving toward you, not from outside, but from the core of your entanglement. The self that never left, the self that always knew. So let this be your final remembering. You're not calling in a new reality. You're collapsing into the one that was already calling you. And the signal that allows that collapse is silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of clarity. Not the stillness of fear, but the stillness of trust. Not the void of doing nothing, but the vibrational signature of no longer needing to do anything to deserve it. This is coherence, and coherence is the language of the field. So if your journey feels quiet right now, good. It means your system is stabilizing. It means your field is clearing. It means you are finally becoming a match to what you used to only imagine. And when your imagination becomes your identity, the future has no choice but to meet you, not through force, but through inevitability. This is the nature of the quantum. It responds not to your timeline, but to your tone. So keep tuning. Keep softening. Keep remembering that the dream is not far. It is near. It is here. It is you. And if this message found you, not just as an idea, but as a frequency. If something inside you slowed down, softened, or settled, then let that be your confirmation. You're not just watching a video, you're answering a signal. You're syncing with a community that's walking the same path, not of control, but of coherence, not of effort, but of embodiment. And if you'd like to stay in this field, to keep expanding, deepening, and collapsing new timelines through resonance, you're invited to subscribe at this channel, because this space isn't just a channel, it's a frequency, and now you're part of it.